There are verified stories of LGBTQ plus community members who have been ignored by potential investors because of their gender identity. Our guest is a seasoned founder and investor, and he's on a mission to help create a world that's built on radical inclusivity, where diversity of knowledge and experience is celebrated. Oh my gosh, we're going to have such a delicious conversation. Stay tuned for the Startup Life live show. Let's glow. Hello and welcome to the Startup Life Live Show. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I gotta tell you, I have such a deep appreciation for what you founders are walking through every single day, the high levels of uncertainty, and yet those champagne popping moments where you feel the joy of your accomplishments, right? Where you really nail it. And then boom, the roller coaster goes back down and you're going, oh no. But you founders are amazing. And I am so grateful that you carved out time to tune in and up your founder game. We're going to be getting some great advice from our guest today in this wonderful conversation that we're having. And as you do better, your startup will do better. So a big yoo-hoo to the live viewers and a hearty welcome to the replay viewers and the podcast listeners. You are going to love this conversation and our delicious guest. If you're tuning in from YouTube and you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel here and click that bell icon. And to receive a notice whenever I post a new live show and has all the details about the guest and what they're bringing to the table, please join the Startup Life Live group, meetup group right there. You can scan that QR code or visit the link. The link will be in the show notes as well. So I just want to take a little moment here to share some Andelicious announcements. Okay, there's so much going on in the startup world, and I want to share with you. And every week, I love to tell everyone, be sure to go check out Arlen's Academy. Everything you need to know about launching a successful business all in one place. It's free, folks, and it's one incredible nugget after another there. It's so wonderful. And for you impact founders, Propeller has an amazing 4-month accelerator program. Go visit that link, gopropeller.org/accelerator. This is for you impact startups, and the deadline, I believe, is June 14th. So come on, accelerator programs really help you up your game. You get mentorship, you get all sorts of fun benefits from that. And if you don't know about Scroobius yet, please visit this incredible platform where they help you create a video pitch deck so that you can bring your full essence to your pitch for founders, for investors. And they also help you meet investors. But most importantly, they are preparing you for pitching and raising capital. And speaking of capital, do you know about Hustle Fund? They're amazing. They were founders before they sold out and became VCs, so they know just how amazing and terrible startup life is. And their team brings real talk and real advice to their relationship. So their founder, one of the co-founders, Elizabeth, and founding partners, Elizabeth Yin, has this phenomenal article, How to Raise a Seed Round. The link is in the show notes. So go check it out because she knows what she's talking about. And hey, how are you, Mia Voss? You are the phenomenal brand ambassador, woman who's wearing so many tiaras out there. And most importantly, the host of one of my favorite podcasts, Shit We Don't Talk About. Everyone, you need to tune in. Mia has the best guests, and boy, does she know how to interview. Amazing. And Brent Manuel, yay! Diverse founder here, celebrating all walks of life, especially the neurodivergent founder. Okay, diversity is everywhere, folks. Okay, in every category. Brent, you are a devoted fan. I'm so thrilled that you're here, and thank you for sending love to Boston. So one more thing, Founders Circle. All right, folks, this show gets seen by hundreds, sometimes thousands of folks. Okay, after it gets posted onto my YouTube channel, the podcast is ranked number 10 in the world for best podcast for startups. Okay, this is a terrific opportunity to amplify what you've got going on. Okay, you can just pop your business name, one liner, and website URL in the comments, and we will showcase and celebrate you and your wonderful work live. So take a moment to do that. Also, if you haven't asked, ask it. You might be needing a tech founder. You might be needing some marketing advice. You might be having a loss or a win. Please bring it over here, engage. Again, you never know who's going to tune in. I have dozens of testimonials from the audience as well as the guests from amazing things that happened while they're tuning in. And speaking of phenomenal guests, the one and only Olgi, who is an amazing founder of the shoe called The Difference. And it's a heelless technology. Seriously, he is breaking records. Are you down in Kentucky still, Olgi? And you're just always out there rocking it and making it happen. All right, moving right along, I want to go ahead and bring our guest in. Let me do a quick introduction of, I just have to say, it's just so freaking cool. He is coming into us today from Brisbane, Australia. It's the one and only Ben Stokes, the founding partner of Chasing Rainbows, an early stage investment fund focused on investing in founders who come from underrepresented backgrounds, particularly those from the LGBTQ plus community. Using his own experience as an LGBTQ plus founder of color, Ben has been an active angel investor in companies led by diverse founders and has fostered them through an exit or next investment phase. Oh my gosh, let's give a hearty welcome to the amazing seasoned founder and funder, the one and only Ben Stokes.
Hi everybody, how you going?
How are things in the land of Oz?
Things are good. I'm speaking to you from the future. It's Wednesday, the 1st of June here. So I can tell you that looking outside, your future looks bright and sunny. So I guess that's a good thing.
That's a great way. I love that you can say that to folks. I'm speaking to you from the future. So I love that, Ben. And, were you raised in that area? How did you become an Aussie? And because I know you've spent time in the States, right?
Yeah, so I'm actually adopted from Sri Lanka. So I was an orphan there, and I was very fortunate to be adopted by some pretty amazing parents who I grew up in Tasmania. And then I moved to Sydney for like 10 years after I finished my degree. And then from there, I moved to the States. So I lived in New York for 2 years and then San Francisco for 4.
Awesome.
That was pre-pandemic. Obviously, I was fortunate enough to catch the last flight on Qantas back to Australia at the beginning of the pandemic and have been ever since.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I imagine what would have happened if you couldn't have made that last flight.
Yeah, it's been a very different outcome, I'm sure.
Oh, because, Australia was on serious lockdown, right? Like nobody's coming in here.
Nobody came in, nobody went out. We've only been able to really travel again as of like 2 months ago. So it's been a crazy ride for sure.
Well, I want to introduce everybody to you as a founder first, because you have such a great founder journey. But why? Like, why did you become an entrepreneur in 2017 when you launched your business? Why did you leave the guaranteed paycheck behind and say, I want to solve a problem? Did your adopted parents, were they entrepreneurs? Were you hustling product or services when you were a kid? Or are you hey, this just happened and here I am, I'm going to solve that problem founder?
Yeah, no, so I actually, the latter actually. So I was definitely a problem solver founder.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about it, so I'd been living overseas for quite a while. I'd been traveling and doing lots of things. And I kind of realized that as an adult, it's really hard to make friends. And I'm not that weird. I'm normal, pretty normal, I guess. And
but you're right. There's no Tinder for friendship.
No, exactly. And Bumble BFF sort of existed, but it was pretty hard to just make connections with new people. Going out to bars was kind of hard. I tried dating apps, but that was for dating. I tried Meetup, but you couldn't guarantee that there were going to be enough people at the Meetup or people that you actually got along with.
Right.
And so I kind of really thought, well, there must be an easier way. And so I kind of did a bit of research and understood from a market perspective that so many other people were feeling exactly the same way. And so I sort of built SocialTable, which is my startup, based on that. So what SocialTable was a social dining platform that enabled you to book and pay for a single seat at a group table at a restaurant as a way of meeting people. So think dining with strangers and hopefully leaving with friends at the end. But what I did, I kind of really focused on...
Wait. Say that tagline again. I love that tagline, something fierce. Go ahead.
What was it? It's
Sitting down at the table. Yeah, sitting down at the table.
So it's kind of like, dine with strangers, leave with friends.
Dine with strangers, leave with friends. I have to tell you, that's almost like the Club Med way of meeting people. If anybody's
so we were really, really conscious about how I set it up. So we didn't show any photographs of anybody before an event. Instead, it was built on random facts that made you unique and special. And so prior to an event, you got a notification, either email or phone app notification about all the people you'd be meeting at the dinner. And so it was everyone's first name and then a list of random facts that you kind of had to ask questions. And it was an opportunity for you to tell your story over dinner. And so what that kind of meant was that people would go with a genuine interest to get to know each other, which was awesome. Obviously, when the pandemic hit, we had to pivot, which was, it was a trying time. It was pretty hard. But we were able to successfully pivot. And so we took it online, and what we did in that sense was use Zoom or Microsoft Teams and enabled people to jump on a Zoom call. We had a sommelier jump on for the first 30 minutes because in the meantime, we actually had sent wine, beer, spirits, or tea directly to your door. So you had this shared experience that you were able to go through. And then we had a matching algorithm to match up people with like-minded individuals. So
I mean, you had what I call, it's almost like a switcheroo moment, right? You went from doing all of this in person to, okay, how do we make it so that people can still connect? They've got the wine or the beer or tea or coffee, and they're still going to have some of that delicious conversation that we do when we sit down at the table together, but it's going to be virtual.
Like you really don't have a choice of sometimes, right? Like every single restaurant or every single partner we had closed overnight. And so it was a do or die moment, I guess you would say. And so, really thought about, adapting because, the only businesses that really survived the pandemic were those that were able to adapt.
Right.
So really thought about that. And then also, like being realistic, as a founder, you've got to have that founder mentality. You've got to be able to move fast. There are 4 things that I believe make a company successful: team, product, timing, and execution. And so, if one of those factors isn't in alignment, then, it's going to be tough. And so, being realistic about that was really important.
And I love that you brought up the founder mentality because, folks, this is why you hear often that investors invest in the founder because they know, what is going to hit the fan. And they're betting on your ability to manage that pandemic. They're betting on you figuring it out and being able to have a pivot, have a shift, and do the right thing. So I love that you brought that up about the founder mentality. And seriously, Ben, congratulations to you and the team for not letting the pandemic stop your social table. Because, folks, the loneliness factor is big out there. And it is not easy to meet friends as an adult. And I'll tell you, if you come to New England, it's going to be even harder. Because we know here, in New England here, any of you who have come from outside of New England, a lot of times it's, I have all the friends and family, I'm fine, thank you. You go to other parts of this wonderful country that we're in, and people are like, I don't know you, but we're having a barbecue, come on over. But during the pandemic, there was none of that, sitting down and being able to meet people and see people in person. So kudos to you and the team for keeping that going and making it happen. Hey, there we go. One of our favorite founders, Justin Ayers, who I got to see in person a few weeks ago here in Boston. How are you, Justin? And we've got equalitymd.com. And I bet that's you, Brent, promoting it for Justin there. A phenomenal, phenomenal website. And hello, our Fab Founder Friday female guest coming on this Friday. Lacey Garcia. So happy that you tuned in. And she's saying, thank you, Andy Lyons, for bringing attention to this important topic, and Ben Stokes for creating Chasing Rainbows and helping make the world more inclusive. Lacey, we look forward to the conversation with you on Friday. And yes, to have a passion and a purpose like you have, Ben, is amazing. Did you have to raise capital when you had SocialTable?
Yeah, so I mainly bootstrapped SocialTable, and then I did raise a very small friends and family round. Just pretty small, just to sort of help get through some of those, I guess, more growth and scaling elements before we really hit the ground. But I think one thing that I really focused on as a founder was to not rely on raising capital, but to instead to build a business that was sustainable on its own. So focusing on revenue and revenue generation, which I think is really important, and really attributed to our success.
Yeah. But how did you do that? Because sometimes, getting that runway started without, and you got some, seed capital, which is wonderful. And, I keep hearing more and more stories of founders who went what I call the MailChimp way, right? Which is to just keep building, doesn't have to happen overnight, keep building. How did that work for you? How did you find the customers to bring them in and create the revenue?
So, my big thing, a big goal was really to, when I started SocialTable, it was a B2C company. And so, I really started thinking, okay, well, where were the people that were looking for, something like SocialTable? So Facebook groups, meetup groups. I did it the hard way. Like you remember one night sitting down on Meetup and going through the Meetup group which was the Sydney Foodies Meetup group, and literally cutting and pasting a message to every single person on there, just introducing that I just created SocialTable. And it was a lot of hard work, but we were able to build it up to something that I'm really proud of.
Right. You got into how many countries?
So we did SocialTable events on every continent, including Antarctica. And then also I had an astronaut dial in once, which was pretty cool. So we were completely,
you were out of space. I love that.
So,
Ben.
when I think about that, I'm a small town country boy from the northwest coast of Tasmania, and managed to be able to create a product that was used on every continent, and then even more so, was used for the UN General Assembly, which is I got to actually speak at the UN. And so
talk more about that. What do you mean it was used at the UN Assembly?
Yeah, so for the Leaders on Purpose conference, they did a SocialTable event, which was amazing. And I got to speak to the top 200 CEOs globally at the time about what my purpose in life was. And so I spoke about creating a world of obviously built on radical inclusivity, but one that also focused on single acts of kindness. Because really, for me, I believe single acts of kindness are the things that really make the world a better place. And you never know what that one single event can do. And I've got my own story around that. So to share, I was abandoned at a hospital as a baby, and the last thing that my birth mother did for me was that single act of kindness where she literally left me somewhere safe, that she knew that I would be found and that I could be looked after, compared to other people I know who were adopted who were sadly left in not so safe places. And so when I think about that, she never knew what that single act of kindness would do, and what life I've lived. And I'm really grateful for that one act, because so many other people have been blessed because of her act.
Absolutely. And I really, that could be, folks, don't you think that could be a stitch that on a pillow moment? Single acts of kindness, they do change the world and they make an impact. And if we could start our day, Ben, asking ourselves, well, what will be my at least one single act of kindness? Wow. So you're in front of the UN Assembly talking to all these top CEOs, sharing your purpose. What was their feedback? What was their response?
Yeah, it was really positive. And obviously, my call to action for each of them was to continue that motion of doing a single act of kindness every day. And obviously when you start thinking about the power of change and that impact, it just takes one single act.
Absolutely. And so you were faced with some pretty harsh conditions and circumstances as a founder, and especially as a first-time founder. Wow, a pandemic, and here, you'd done the hard work, you'd built it up, you'd gotten a momentum, you were around the country, even in outer space, around the world, and you had this great opportunity to really connect with people on a global level, especially influencers on a global level. How did that leave you feeling as your ability as a founder? What did that do for you?
It's really interesting that you asked that question, because like one of the big things that I think every founder has to do is actually understand their measures of success and what success looks like for them. I think there's definitely this thing around this drive to be $1 billion company, which is great, and I love that. But there's also that realistic element to that not every company is going to be $1 billion company. It's okay to have a $10 million a year making profit lifestyle business. Like there's no shame in that either. And so thinking about that sort of stuff is also really important to really understand, okay, well, what makes you success? And so when I started thinking about that, sure, SocialTable never made it to be $1 billion startup, but instead we did all these other great things. And I think that being able to remember that and actually have those as not necessarily KPIs, but as measures of success, definitely help you as a founder,
Yes.
have success.
Oh my gosh, I got to do this now too. Yay for the founder journey story there. Seriously, Ben, this is what happens, folks. And let's pull on this thread for a little bit. What happens is we see others' measurements for success instead of our own measurement for success. And so the fact that you brought this up is so important in the startup world. And we hear it from investors. We want to see, how big are you going to grow? How are you going to scale? And you're going to be a unicorn, although I think they're bringing it down to maybe a Pegasus right now or something because of the downturn in the economy. But still, founders, know thyself. Okay, right, Ben? Find out inside what's going to really matter to you and keep you happy. And don't go too far out. I remember one founder coming on the show saying she was all about making that 5,000, Inc. 5,000. And once she met that goal, she was like, oh, thank God. And she just came to a full stop and just really decreased her activity because she'd given up a lot for that and it did not feel good. What other ideas do you have around that on how to measure what success looks like for a founder?
I think it really, really it depends on what you want to say that you've achieved in life. I know this is going to sound a bit morbid, but one thing that I did was actually once write my own eulogy. And the reason why I did that was so that I could look backwards by looking forwards and understanding, what I actually wanted to achieve in life. And so, by actually knowing what I want people to think of me once I'm gone, and the legacy I want to leave, really made me understand, okay, well, what are the things I need to go and do, and what are the things I need to achieve? And so by having those achievements and knowing that that's my list of things that I'll measure my success from.
I love that. So this experience, and I know you have other lived experiences that led you to be a founder, and then you had your founder journey, which was so deep and so impressive in preparing you. How did it all prepare you for this next step, which is to help fund some of these founders as an angel investor, and now you're raising a fund to do that? How did all of these experiences that you have lived through and thrived through prepare you to see the world? Like, what lens are you looking at now as a result?
So I created Chasing Rainbows, which is a venture fund that specifically invests, it's a pre-seed fund that specifically invests in LGBTQ plus founded businesses. And so when I start thinking about underrepresented founders, you start looking at capital, right? So less than 1% of companies actually raise capital. Of that 1%, less than 15% are underrepresented or minority founded. So that means anyone who is a woman, Black, brown, Latinx, LGBT plus. It doesn't really matter anything other than cisgendered straight white men are found in companies. And so when you start looking at that and then break that down again into each of those individual elements, you start realizing that there's really big gaps in access to capital, particularly early stage or early access to capital.
That's
and so
right.
what I started doing then was sort of really try to look at the ecosystem around where I could have the most impact. And so I looked at the venture ecosystem in two levels. Firstly, on where the funds that were already in existence were playing in terms of were they seed funds, were they pre-seed funds, were they Series A funds, for example. And then I looked at the flow of money within that ecosystem to understand where there were gaps and gaps in the flow,
Right.
essentially. And so what I realized is that, there were some funds that were doing, specifically investing in underrepresented founders and namely LGBTQ+. But, as they've become more successful, they've moved further upstream. And so they're now investing more seed and Series A investments. And so there was a gap in that pre-seed element. Now, one thing that I learned as a founder myself was that, it's not about intelligence, because intelligence can be found anywhere. It's actually opportunity that is the biggest differentiator, and particularly for success. And so, when I started looking at and hearing the stories of the founders that I had invested in, sadly for a lot of the LGBTQ plus community in particular, when they come out, they lose their friends and family. The very first round of capital raising is literally called friends and family. And so if you don't have friends and family, where do you go? And so it really inhibits your ability to raise capital, and then also inhibits your ability to be successful, because there's not that opportunity. And so you start looking at all those factors in particular, and you start realizing that you need that early access to capital, in particular as you're getting things off the ground, and moving from ideation to MVP, and then obviously MVP to scaling and building a successful company. And so, so I really wanted to understand the impact that we could make, and was really, what's the word? I was really, my brain is not working today.
Oh, that's okay. It'll come, but whatever. You were
really conscious about what I did and intentional with my approach to how to create a fund. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're taking all those different, we don't talk about this when, we think what we see in Hollywood, like on TV. Oh, I came out. Oh, yay. Families all gather around. No, that is not what happens. Right, Ben? For many.
No, sadly, it's not. And, and we see more and more today, the changes in laws, for example, like what's happened with the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida. And then obviously what's happening with the trans community in Alabama, for example.
Yes.
And all of that sort of stuff. And you start realizing that, what we perceived as being accepted isn't real. And so it's really important, to show that, we are not only a community that survives, we are a community that will thrive. And so by being really intentional about that has been part of the goal.
Right. And so this is why, folks, investors, conscious or unconscious, have a bias, especially if a founder is out, okay, and is firmly in the LGBTQ plus community. And Arlen Hamilton talks a lot about this in her book as well. For crying out loud, there she is, like a 6-foot woman of color, high school education only, and she's a member of the LGBTQ community. She had no business going into venture capital, if you see the venture capital landscape, right? So we needed her representation. We need your representation, Ben, so more folks from the community can say, okay, Ben figured it out, Arlen figured it out, there's others that are out there representing that have figured it out. How can I do this? But it's important that we continue to not only educate investors to the bias that's out there, Ben, but also hold their feet to the fire, so to speak. I hear a lot of lip service out there still. I started diving deep into the VC world back in, and sorry folks, but 1992, okay, 30 years ago. I am not seeing much changes in those 30 years. There's a few more women in there, but they're not always the ones making the decision on who gets the check. So how can we hold investors accountable for when they say, oh, yes, we want to do more diverse funding. We want to help more diverse founders and more founders from our LGBTQ plus community. What's a good way for having them really step up?
I think, like, as you mentioned, it's not just about having lip service. It's about actually following through and having action, right? And so, when I think about that, like, we've been very intentional about how we position the fund and ensured that we have made equitable investments that create the equality. And so, like, when you start looking at equity and understanding that you have to actually be really intentional with actually putting forward that funding into that community to ensure that community has the foot up that they need to be able to get ahead and actually,
Right.
thrive.
Absolutely. And a score.
Going back to one thing that you mentioned earlier,
Sure.
7 out of 10 founders believe that if they come out, it's going to inhibit their ability to actually raise capital. And so when you start thinking about that even more, you start realizing how important it is to not only be representative, but also to really be intentional about how you're representative as well.
Absolutely. Because folks tuning in, you have to understand that when you are a member of the LGBTQ plus community, when you realize that this is your gender identity, if you're not in an environment that accepts it, you have to live a lie. And nobody wants that for someone else. Nobody wants withholding is lying, folks. So we want fully expressed founders out there being who they be and solving the problems and being judged about their ability to implement and execute and come up with incredible solutions to the gnarly problems they are facing every single day.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts, Ben?
Absolutely. I mean, like, when I start thinking about that, I know for myself, when I was a lot younger in my career, I often would waste energy, referring to my partner at the time as they or them rather than he or him. And really that wasted energy. It's like, why waste that time and that brain space and that all of that sort of stuff in order just to feel like, you're not going to upset anybody, when realistically being your authentic self means that you're the best version of you. And so, you're actually able to achieve a lot more, that, you have less chances of depression and anxiety based off that. Like, there are so many bigger factors from a mental health perspective, as well as just from a basic success perspective as well.
Absolutely. So, we've got to again continue to dissolve these barriers and create a more equal landscape. All right. And the pattern matching is real. But again, I keep hearing the lip service. I'm Allison Byers, the founder of Scroobius. She has a scorecard. VC firm said they're going to do this. How are they doing over here? Mia, you're absolutely right. She's saying, wow, this is so needed. Early access to capital is so critical. Thank you for the wonderful intentionality, Ben. Really, it's true. When you get really clear about the kind of check that you're going to be writing and the impact that it's going to have on that company on that early stage when they don't have family and friends to turn to. We see this a lot with our Black community, right? Family and friends, geez, they're going to be borrowing $25 from me. Forget me getting money from them. They are light about it, but it's the truth that they are sharing as well. Hey, LinkedIn user, it's not telling me your name. So if you could pop your name in, sometimes LinkedIn and StreamYard aren't fully engaged, but it says, great conversation, Andy and Ben. Partnering with other VCs funding underrepresented people is one way to amplify the good work being done and get investment to more diverse folks.
And I could not agree more, LinkedIn user. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but one thing that I've been really conscious of is actually creating those partnerships further upstream with those seed and Series A funds. And so the idea is that with Chasing Rainbows, we offer smart capital, which is not just that early capital, but also the advice, mentorship, and guidance to ensure that those founders hit the KPIs that those larger funds require of them in order to get investment. And so, we're really conscious about how we work within the ecosystem as well to ensure that our founders are successful. And yes, Shelley from 360 VC Collective, hello. Obviously, I know Shelley and have definitely worked with Kelly, her partner as well, with 360 Ventures. So,
and everyone, 360 Ventures Collective, go follow them on Twitter, go follow them on LinkedIn. These are three phenomenal women, and Metzger's in there as well with Shelley and Kelly, and they are investing primarily in health tech, and I believe primarily in female founders. Go check them out. They just launched their fund, and it's so important that we continue to add wind to each other's sails. Congratulations, Shelley.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to say thank you to Kelly and Shelley for the introduction to Justin at Equality MD, which is a company that both of us have invested in. So,
yeah. It's great. And Shelley, you brought up such a good point, which is this, it's a lily pad, right? We're all improving, our ability to move these founders forward so they can really, bring the fully expressed version of their business and the best opportunity for their business, and getting them to the next level of capitalization is so important, especially if it's a heavy asset business. And Shelley says, you're a fantastic ecosystem partner, Ben. XO, Shelley. That's for my podcast listeners. We'd love to share the love here at the Startup Live show. So you have made some investments, right, Ben?
Yeah, I have. Yep.
Did you get any training to be an investor? Like, how did that work?
So, I mean, it's kind of been trial by fire, as I'm a bit of a, how would I put this? I'm a kinesthetic learner. And so I like to learn through experience, either my own or through the experience of others. Also, though, I did definitely do some courses to get myself into the right, mindset, and actually helped me really understand not just where I invest, but also the venture ecosystem as a whole. So I did a course at UC Berkeley, which is part of Berkeley School of Law, which is called Venture Capital University. For anyone who is interested in getting like a really well-rounded overview of the venture ecosystem, I highly recommend that course. Indeed, I've also have just been accepted into the Material Change Agents, which is another 12-month program. This one is more based on mentorship, and really giving me that fellowship or opportunity for fellowship in some of the larger funds, which I'm really thankful for. Really focuses again on emerging and underrepresented fund managers. Similarly,
what was the name of that one again? I want to get that down so I can have the link in the show notes.
Yeah, Material Change Agents.
Wow, boy, do I love that name. I mean, seriously.
It's really focusing on being very conscious of.
Yeah, absolutely. And 12 months is a huge commitment. You're going to come out of there, and you're probably with a group of folks that you'll be nurturing relationships. You'll have your SocialTable moments with them.
Absolutely. And I will say, going back to that Venture Capital University, I have met some of the smartest, most amazing people through that course in terms of my cohort, as well as just in the ecosystem there as well. And Adam Sterling, who runs it, he is an absolute champion.
Oh, this is wonderful. I'm going to have the links in the show notes, everybody, because you may want to be looking into it yourself down the road as you cash out with your wonderful startup.
And just to put a note in there, it's for anybody, no matter where you are in your investment life cycle, I guess. So, it's good for angels, it's good for venture capitalists, good for fund managers. It really does give you a really good grounding.
Unbelievable. I love that. And so what was it like when you wrote that first check? And we had the phenomenal Jennifer Mendez from Mendez Ventures. And did I get that right now? Anyway, and she talked about the first time, and they invest in fintech, cybersecurity, and diverse founders as well. And they like to do that early stage like you do. And they also do artificial intelligence. And it's Mendoza Ventures, everyone. And she talked about that time, the first time she handed a check over, her hand was shaking. And she's like, I have to fix my state of mind around this. This is too scarcity. I need to be more abundant in investing. How was it for you?
Yeah, I remember the very first angel check I wrote. So it was to a friend who I met sailing around Croatia. She went to Berkeley and did her MBA and had come up with this company called Underclub. Her name's Katie. And so, I was like one of the very first people that she was pitching it to. So she was going for investment, and she kind of was like asked for some advice on pitching and a pitch deck, and asked if she could pitch me. And so, we sort of, did that. I had been in sales for a long time, so I kind of understood how to sort of pitch, and so how to tell that story. And so we, it was really great. Like she pitched me, and at the end of that, I wrote her a check. And
folks, you never know where you're going to run into somebody. And a lot of times what she did was great. If I could just interrupt for a second, Ben, was that she said, "Can I just get your advice?"
Yeah, exactly. If you want investment, don't ask for money, ask for advice. And if you want advice, ask for money is the best way to think of it.
Oh boy, here we go. That's just, I got to clap on that one. Another stitch that on a pillow moment. That was ideal. I may have to do that on the TikTok. That was so good. So Ben, you wrote that first check. You had that first investment. How did that inform future investments? And also, are you industry specific? I know your thesis is about the diverse founders, specifically LGBTQ plus community founders. What about industries?
Yeah, so we're sector agnostic, so we don't really mind about that. Again, it's really about the founder. When you're investing pre-seed, you don't have that many variables to go off in terms of, you don't have a lot of data. And so, we're really conscious about who we invest in and what that founder is like. And that's going back to what you mentioned earlier about how gritty they are, how adaptable are they? How can they think outside the box? And, like the thing that I'm really, really looking for in the founders I invest in is, their ability to create something from nothing, and what they've done to be scrappy. And I think that scrappy founder mentality is so important. So, for me, I'm a little bit more, I guess, open to having a conversation with people when they have, the bare bones of a product, if they've got customers. And so I like to look at it and say, I don't mind if your whole product is made of scaffolding and there's 2 mice in a hamster wheel in the corner running to keep the lights on. If you've done that and you've got customers, you are worlds ahead of those people that have just built a product and don't have any customers. Because realistically, MVP, get it out there as fast as you can. Because, the sooner you've got customers, the sooner you can get feedback. The sooner you've got feedback, the sooner you can actually understand if you've got product market fit. As soon as you've got product market fit, you can go to investors, get the capital, and then really build that sophistication around your product from the capital you raise.
Ding. Brilliant advice. Not everybody is like last Friday's guest, Ahmad from Narrator, who had such a strong background that he just told the idea and he got funding, both seed, pre-seed, seed, and Series A on the idea.
To remember with underrepresented founders is they often have to work twice as hard for half the respect. The caveat to that, though, and I think the piece that I love to finish with, is that also means they go twice as far when they have the opportunity. And so what I'm really conscious about, how do we ensure that those founders do have that opportunity?
Right. Exactly. And bringing that and again, leveling the playing field in such a way that founders can have the opportunity, because I think you said earlier, it's not just intelligence, it's the opportunity and how they seize that opportunity.
Opportunity is the big differentiator. And so,
right.
So, because there is, intelligence is everywhere. Doesn't matter, male, female, black, white, whatever.
But seizing the opportunity and knowing how to manage everything that comes across the plate, so to speak. I bet this is Brent, he is a disability advocate. And how can we get more disabled people into the startup world? Any thoughts on that, Ben?
Yeah, so I actually did was a coach for a group out of my brain is not working, out of Oakland, actually, that was worked particularly with people who are disabled moving into the startup world as founders. And so, again, it goes back to that whole element of, it's not, you should not focus on the disability, but instead what you can do as a founder and how you use you use your background to be able to show how you problem solve, and the way that you problem solve is probably different than how I would problem solve. But bringing that to the forefront and actually having that in conversation means that you are able to help people solve problems faster by giving people more of that diverse
That's
knowledge.
right. And we know the data shows us that when we have more diversity at the table, we have a more profitable, sustainable outcome, because you're bringing the different perspectives, not just the same type, homogenous look and view of the world. And therefore, you're able to meet your customer with a more equitable group of people, in my humble opinion. So no one succeeds alone, Ben, right?
No,
I mean, especially in the startup space. So who has been in your world that really lifted you up, added wind to your sails, and you said, wow, I will forever remember that person?
So the person that I've got so many people. I'm so blessed. But one person in particular stands out, and her name is Kelly King. And so Kelly King and I met when I was at Salesforce. She was my customer, actually. And so we worked together on many different projects for her implementation of Salesforce across. She was the COO of Bupa Dental, which is the largest dental network in Australia. And so her and I built out this map for SocialTable for their business. And so Kelly and I met more than 14 or 15 years ago now, which that's a long time. But we've been able to work together in multiple different ventures all the way through. So Kelly was my board chair of SocialTable. We've worked on other startups together, and now obviously having her as part of my rhetoric is really important. I think, when I think about it, like I've been very conscious about who I invite into my investor committee and advisory circle, and in particular, it's about understanding where I as a person am lacking, and so getting people who are much better and much smarter and much more capable than me to help me understand those areas. And that's as a founder, probably my best advice is hire smart people who are smarter than you at doing certain roles that you're not great at, because those are the people that are going to help you succeed.
Absolutely. And you got to not hesitate, but delegate and let them soar with you cheering them on.
Absolutely. So knowing your limitations as well.
Yeah, exactly. Self-awareness is like your number one job, really, as a founder, along with upping your game, right? And getting better at the skill sets that you need to be a founder and get your leadership going, stepping more into your authority as a founder. It's an incredible journey. Ben, this is why I'm always telling people you never lose with entrepreneurship. You always win no matter what happens. You could lose.
Always a learning, right? Even if you fail, you learn, right? And so
that's right.
There are so many great things from being able to say you.
That's right. Now, as you are building Chasing Rainbows, which of course we love that name, something fierce. What will success look like? You talked about measuring success. What will that look like for you as you start to build? Because you're still. When did you launch or start to build?
We released about 6 months ago, so it's very new.
Very new.
So like we're still in like. There's two modes to being a fund manager, right? It's raising capital from limited partners to be able to invest into the fund, to be able to then invest that capital into startups. Yeah. And so like it's a bit of it's a chicken and egg sort of game in a sense. But we're really fortunate. I'm heavily involved in Startout. Obviously, that's where I know Kelly O'Connell and the guys from 360 Venture Collective from. And so Startout has been a really great source of deals for me, or for deal flow, and obviously as well has kept me really in the founder community. So Startout is a founder network for LGBTQ plus founders. So that no matter where you are in the world, obviously you can sign up. So it's startout.org. That's.
Yeah, and I'll put that link into the show notes. I follow them on Instagram. They're just outstanding. I think I follow them on Twitter as well. So But
And so now it's a matter of, obviously finding more investors. So, the idea that I'm sort of really pushing is, that microeconomic element of having LGBTQ plus investors invest in Chasing Rainbow to ensure that, again, going back to that element of making sure that our community doesn't just survive, that it thrives. And so the way to do that is looking at the microeconomic flow and the flow of money and keeping the money, going round and round in circles to ensure
that's right.
that it keeps
And
building.
and the word pride is for real folks, okay? Being able to be out there, prideful in your ownership as a founder, right? And everything that you're doing as your fully expressed, not hidden self is so important. And so, what will success look like for Chasing Rainbows? Like, when will you sit there and go, all right, you know what? This was my intention and I am feeling it now.
So, again, my goal is to really invest in, LGBTQ plus founders to ensure that they know that they've got, somewhere they can go and raise those early rounds of capital.
Yeah.
So my goal will be right now, success, I guess, is making sure that we pick great founders to invest in, which means that they create great companies, which obviously then exit for multiples above what, from an investment standpoint,
Mhm.
which means that then that money comes back into our fund, obviously goes back to the investors and gives them outsized returns, which means that they are more likely to reinvest again with us in the next round of fundraising, which then means that we can invest in more startups, which again keeps that cycle growing.
I love that. And so, how hard is it to reach you? Everybody's always saying, oh my gosh, it's so hard to get through to an investor. What is the process? What is the funnel that you put people through to reach out to you?
We believe in having a very open door. So, our link is literally to book a meeting with me on my LinkedIn, which is down below. And so the idea, if you're a founder, obviously you can, I've set up Calendly. So my link goes to a Calendly link, which has four different meeting types. If you're a founder, it's got specific questions. If you're an investor, it also has specific questions to answer based on your experience and whether or not where you are, where you fall, whether you're pre-seed, how much money you've you've raised to date, also whether or not you're revenue generating or not.
Right. I love that. And folks, I'll have I'll have Ben's email, I'll have his LinkedIn, everything in the show notes, so you can easily capture that and find it, both on my YouTube channel and on the podcast show notes, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you tune in. That information will be in the show notes for you. One of the things that too that's so important is the journey that you're on with the founder, right? And so you said you've helped folks go through an exit. What does that look like?
Yeah, so they were acquired, and so I guess the goal for a founder, is to hopefully have their business be acquired one day, for a significant amount of money. That is the goal, right? And so, but however, there's also I just want to point out that there's no shame in having a lifestyle business either that you never exit out of. That's and so right. I just want people to understand that being a founder isn't always just about having $1 billion exit or being acquired by somebody else. Instead, if you have a great business model that's earning $10 million a year in profit, then that's also a great thing. It's very different from an investment standpoint, though, because as an investor, you want to be able to ensure that you get the returns for your investors or your limited partners. And so, being conscious of that, where you fall into that, obviously is something that all investors have to sort of understand, because as a general partner in a fund, you need to be sure that you're going to get the return on investment for your LP.
Right. And so do you bring in individual investors? Because I know what happens to some funds, they bring in LPs, they bring in bigger funds that are going to restrict their flexibility. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing that I'm really conscious of with people that I, partner with as an investor is the fact that this relationship is a long-term relationship. It's not a short-term quick win, particularly because we're a pre-seed fund. And so, it's definitely a longer journey. And so when I think about that, you have to remember, even as a founder, you have to remember the same thing. You have to be literally married, or with this, in a relationship with this fund or investor for at least 3 to 5 years, if not 5 to 7 years, if not even longer, right? And
That's
so
right.
every the life cycle of a fund is 10 years on average. And so when you start thinking about all of those factors, you start realizing that it's really important to be very conscious and intentional, going back to that word of intentionality, with who you partner with, and so, or who you get investment from, because it is not a short-term quick win, and not a quick relationship that ends very quickly.
That's right. And folks, I'm always saying, Ben, remember your cap table, okay? You don't want your business to get tanked because you have the wrong people in your cap table.
Absolutely.
You want to make sure you have the right investors that are aligned, who think you're amazing, right? And who are there to add wind when you need wind, who are there to help you, as you spoke about earlier, and Shelley was talking about as well, that ability to help lead them to the next stage of investment so they continue to get leverage when they need it to grow exponentially and scale. It's just lovely. I love that. So, as you've been a founder and a funder, when you have felt inadequate, I never say if, it's always when, folks. Doesn't matter how much experience you have, whatever. You're going to have those days where you're like, oh my God, I am the worst ever. How do you shift your mindset? What do you do to just go, all right, Ben, snap out of it?
Yeah, again, I go back to that statement I made earlier about understanding your measures of success, right? And I think that when I start thinking about that even more, honestly, we're human, right? We're gonna make mistakes. I've made so many mistakes in my life. I definitely am very conscious of that. But using those learning opportunities as a way of being better or moving forward, and actually being smarter about the investments that you make or the decisions you make in general, I think is the best advice I can give. And so, I've definitely not been perfect with my investment track record. I know that I've made some doozies. However, I have learned from those experiences and have been, very much more open to being less naive, doing more diligence, all those sort of things. So I think there's a lot of learnings that we have in life from the mistakes.
That's right. Are you kidding? They're the best. And that leads me, we touched on it briefly a little earlier, but how has entrepreneurship served you both personally and professionally, Ben, as you've been seeing how you've grown and evolved as a human?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about it, I never thought that entrepreneurship was my journey. Where I grew up in the northwest coast of Tassie is pretty conservative. So people go for a job that that you are going to have you go for a career in a job where you're going to have a job at the end of it. So entrepreneurship wasn't really something that I ever thought of, and so I've kind of fell into it really. But I'm really grateful. I tell people now, I seem to be in meetings all the time. My calendar is pretty full, but I honestly don't feel like I work a day in my life anymore. I love what I do so much that I'm happy, and so and like I said, I don't work. I love what I do, and so even though I'm putting in a lot of hours, it's great. I love it.
It's good hard work. I tell people that all the time. They go, "What, you do 2 live shows a week? What's the matter with you?" I go, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like, wow, look at this. And I'm learning this and this happens here and all these systems and procedures because I'm an SOP gal, but it all falls together beautifully. And every day, I can't believe I get to get up and do this. And that's what it sounds like you feel, Ben.
100%. Like I said, I'm learning from smart people every single day. And my founders are educating me all the time on things that I have no idea about. And so I feel like I am very privileged to be, in a position where I learn all the time, and I get to meet people who are doing awesome things. And for me, it's actually, as an investor, I know this is going to sound silly. Often people go to founders go to meetings with investors and they're nervous, but the investor on the other side is just as nervous that you're not going to like them either or see value in them as an investor, because again, investors want to ensure that they're not just giving capital, but they want to be able to help you grow as well and give you that advice and mentorship. So, I look at all of those factors, and I think, it's a privilege to be amongst the people that I'm investing in.
That is so beautifully said. Thank you so much. But everyone, you can hear and see what an extraordinary human this wonderful man is. And who wouldn't want Ben Stokes and Chasing Rainbows on their cap table? My gosh, it'd just be delicious. So all his links, LinkedIn, email, everything you need, website are in the show notes. Go connect, go follow, and share the good news about Chasing Rainbows. And if you are ready to join a fund, talk to Ben. Okay, he's taking in investment dollars. You can tell that he cares deeply about the founders he invests in, and he has his thesis and his ability to filter out what a good deal is. So Chasing Rainbows is a wonderful way for you to give back to the world, in my humble opinion. So, Ben, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to pop you into the green room. Any last thoughts before I do that?
No, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit of my story. I really appreciate it.
It's a wonderful story, and I love how you're serving the world. And I seriously am so grateful as a mom of a wonderful son who's a member of the LGBTQ plus community. I know how important it is that your work and your intention that you're doing just adds value on so many levels. The ripple effect is huge. And just being here today talking about this, a person of color who is a member of the LGBTQ community, you have added representation for so many founders out there, or investors, or folks who are sitting there thinking, wow, okay, now I can see it. Because, I saw it, so I can be it. So thank you, Ben, so much for joining me. I'm going to pop you into the green room, and we learned so much from this phenomenal man. I am a huge fan. You can tell I'm gushing away here, but I know that we took away not just, how investors think and founders think and some of the criteria that's needed to raise capital or be an investor or have a fund, but we also learned about how important it is to be a wonderful person along the way and to do something, a random act of kindness, one kind thing every single day. I'd like to challenge you to do at least 10, but do one. And I think we will be fulfilling Ben's work in the world in that regard. Let me share with you who's coming on next week. She stopped by to say hi earlier. It's the amazing Lacey Garcia, and it's going to be Fab Female Founder Friday, June 3rd, here at the Startup Life Live Show, 12 p.m. And Lacey is the founder and CEO of Willow, a financial technology and guidance platform that empowers women and the underrepresented with education, coaching, and support through every life journey. Willow's mission is to pioneer the standard of financial care provided to women and transform the way in which financial institutions serve women. She is up in women's game so they can be more financially acute and aware and all of the good things while making sure financial institutions serve us the best. So I hope you can tune in. And how do you remember to tune in? Well, you join the Startup Life Live meetup group right here. You subscribe to the YouTube channel, and it really helps us get the word out into the world. Thank you very much, Mia Voss. I always make it look easy. Thank you so much. And thank you, LinkedIn user. I don't know why it's not working tonight. I'm so grateful that you tuned in. And I feel so strongly that anytime that we can carve out time to up our founder game through hearing other founder stories, it just brings more to our journey. By hearing how they have solved problems, their view of the world, it really helps us up our founder game. So I'm grateful for your time and presence. And until next time, I'm blowing you kisses filled with appreciation, mwah, 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 and wishing you a delicious day. Cheers.